We are going to be together for a little under 2 hours-ish or so tonight. We plan to end by 8 for sure. And I have the honor of getting to introduce our guest trainer, who's incredibly experienced and very awesome. So she'll get us started and we'll go through the training with her. Then we'll kind of have a chance to ask questions. So any burning questions you guys have been holding on to, we'll get them answered tonight. And we'll break down into groups South Novato and Marin City so that we can talk a little bit about how things are going to work in each site. Anybody have any questions before we get started? Awesome, you guys are on it. Okay, so I'm here to introduce Judy Kramer. Judy is a program manager with 10,000 Degrees. And before she had that illustrious title, doing academic support at an awesome organization called 10,000 Degrees, she's had 3 prior careers, and this is her 4th. So her first career was a management consultant, then her second career was as a banker, then her 3rd career, really, job was as a mom, and then she moved into working for 10,000 Degrees. And I can let her tell you a little bit more about why she's so passionate about that work and came to that work as her 4th and amazing job. But I think it'll also really come through in her presentation tonight as her, her passion and her expertise really comes through. So thank you, Judy, for being here and partnering with us, and take it away.
So in your packet, you have a 2-sided paper that looks like this, and it's meant to help you take notes and give some reminder pointers on what I'm going to cover. I know Amy asked a minute ago about questions you have, but the upper right box that says, what do you want to learn about tutoring with Reading Buddies? If you have a question in mind, if you jot it down, and if we don't get it addressed before the end of the presentation, we'll circle back and do it. Or if as I'm going along you have questions, please put them up there.
Anyone need that?
So the presentation that I'm going to do I should back up. My program places adult volunteers in schools, and so what you're going to see and we're going to go through is really the training that we do for adult volunteers. And it's going to be a lot about making relationships with students, because I think that's critical to supporting struggling students. We will talk some about the actual reading piece, but I put that out there because a lot of people think I'm going to be an academic tutor. She's going to spend the whole time talking to me about phonics and vocabulary and so on and so forth. But if you don't have a relationship with a student, you aren't going to get very far. So just to start, because I understand most of the people in the room are students at Dominican, how many of you grew up in San Rafael or Novato? 1, okay. Marin County? Bay Area? A couple of you. Okay. So some of this then, some of what I'm going to show you may be a bit of a surprise. So why don't we do this? What I like to do is start by a quick around the room, and what I want to hear from you is your name and what you see as one of your strengths, and this will come up in a moment. I'll start. My name is Judy Kramer, and one of my strengths is I'm really good at remembering faces. So if I meet you on the street, I'm not going to remember your name, but I'm going to go, we met somewhere. Why don't you go next?
My name is Erin Beckelman, and one of my strengths, I guess, is patience, because I know it can take time to learn skills, but patience is definitely a good skill to have.
Excellent. Yes.
My name is Ashley Pan, and one of my strengths is being persistent and sticking with something even if it's very difficult.
Wonderful. Yeah.
My name is Shanila, and one of my strengths is that I'm easy to talk to.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Rebecca.
Sure. My name is Ruth, and one of my strengths would be telling here anyone to never give up and try their hardest.
Wonderful. All right.
My name's Abby Cole, and one of my strengths is working with others.
Okay, great.
My name's Sabrina Robinson. One of my strengths is my
I was gonna say, you project really well. I like that.
My name is Rosa Liguria, and one of my strengths is making connections with people.
Okay.
My name is Laura Brown, and one of my strengths is I'm creative.
Okay, wonderful.
My name is Jose Opeza, and one of my strengths is connecting with people.
Okay.
My name is Savannah Rojas, and one of my strengths is my patience.
All right, wonderful. Yes.
I'm Tamara Gonzalez. I think one of my strengths is that I'm curious and like new things, new experiences.
Wonderful.
I'm Elijah Media, and I'd say one of my strengths is I'm easily approachable.
You're very approachable. Wonderful. Yes.
My name is Sam Casco, and one of my strengths is communicating with other people.
All right. Great.
I'm Katie Rasmussen, and I think one of my strengths is that I teach by thinking outside the box.
Oh, all right. I like that. Yes.
My name is Brianna. I would say that one of my strengths is helping others.
All right.
I'm Evan McClure, and I say one of my strengths is ambition.
All right. And last but not least.
My name is Ali, and one of my strengths is being a good listener.
Excellent. All right. So keep those in mind. We'll come back to that. Okay, so we've partnered with the library in 10,000 Degrees have partnered because we have similar goals of supporting students in getting to and through college. And as you all may know, primary reason you're here is reading at grade level by the end of third grade is critical to succeeding in high school. There are studies that have shown if you don't read at grade level by the end of third grade, your chances of graduating high school, let alone going on to college, are much diminished. So the work you're going to be doing is very important. So a couple things. I'm going to talk briefly about our students, what I call the ABCs of tutoring, and some next steps. All right, so very briefly, 10,000 degrees, why 10,000 degrees? We aren't quite sure. It is the temperature of the sun. We started by trying to connect with 10,000 students. We've now surpassed that and connect with probably about 10,000 students a year. But important, which you are a part of, and the libraries agree, is each of us can contribute to change. So it's an underscoring of how important we are, and you never know what difference you're going to make in a young person's life. Our focus is helping low-income students get to and through college, and again, very similar to the mission that the library is doing. So a quick look at low income. The average income in Marin is $147,000. Does anybody have an idea of what income qualifies you as low income? Spare the time? $32,000 a year. That's a pretty big gap in this county. So let's go on. Anybody have an idea about how many students, percentage-wise, size-wise, are low-income students in this county? The average income is $140,000, $7,000. All right. Appreciate that. So, sorry if you can't quite read this. The average in the county is 26%. You, if you're going to work at South Nevada, you're in Nevada Unified, which is 33%. And Amy had a statistic for Hamilton.
Yeah, and the school that we're going to be working with the most closely, the students, 72% of the students are on free and reduced lunch, which is one indicator of income level in a household.
And if you're in Sausalito, Marin City, the average across the district is 47%. Marin City is a good deal higher as well. So I'm putting up these statistics.
I'm sorry, I need to interject, but I would say some of that is probably because we share the zip code with Sausalito.
And that's so well
Yeah,
your zip
yeah.
code. I agree. Yeah, a lot of this is blending. So I put that up there. Why would being living in a low-income family impact your ability to learn? Yes, sir.
Lack of resources.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Probably no internet or laptop to study on.
Great, excellent, yes.
You don't really have access to tutors, that costs a lot. If we're talking about high school students, like I think that's not a thing if you don't have the money to pay for it.
Okay, yes,
Oh, the parents might not be around because they might be working jobs.
they're working hard, yeah, okay, wonderful. I'm not saying this to ask you to pity the students you're going to be working with, but it sounds like you already get it. Appreciate that they may be coming from an environment where things that you perhaps could assume were in your life as a child are not in their lives. And in this county, I'm going to be quite candid, a number of our students are immigrants, so their families have worries about whether they'll be able to stay in the country, and whether they talk to their children about it or not, but that sense of anxiety in the family can get into the brain of a little kid and cause them to be concerned and distracted, and it's harder to learn. Okay. So that was like a ramp through an overview of some of the elements of the students that you're going to work with. Are there other questions you're coming in with about the demographics, the nature of the students that you'd like us to include? All right, everyone's good? All
I
right.
have a question / comment so related to some of the experiences students might be having at home. I mean, it's certainly not going to be universal for every student, but some students are struggling with issues of, whether there's enough food even in the house. Many students will get lunch at school, but an after-school snack is often really, really important. So just so everyone knows that can be an issue too, and we will be providing snacks for the kids. So when you're here and you're tutoring, especially in the after-school sessions or the evening sessions, feel free. Like we'll put it out for you, we'll show you where it is, but offer them snacks, let them eat. It powers the brain, so it's critical to helping kids.
Great, thank you, Amy. All right, so I'm going to move on to what I call the ABCs of tutoring. I mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to talk a lot about relationship. And to be an effective tutor, whether you're a reading buddy, whether you're in the classroom, we find that there are 3 things. They sound simple, but they're really important. Show up, see strength, and encourage your student. So what do I mean by show up? Well, we just talked about some of our students live with a lot of uncertainty. That can be scary, especially if you're a little kid. You might not understand what's going on in your family. Maybe you all had situations in your families where, you overhear mom and dad chatting about stuff that you don't quite understand. Having consistency and predictability in their lives can help make them feel safer. Consistency, predictability is things like, if you say you're going to be there on Tuesday, you need to show up. Because they may not know why you didn't show up. Did they not like me? Did they abandon me? Are they ever coming back? We get that you can't show up, and I know there are some mechanisms for notifying staff or families if you can't. Knowing that most of you are students, I'm going to be really blunt. I think it's really important for you to look at your class schedules, your exam schedule, and be able to tell the library staff and your student, if not at all possible, at least a week before you're going to be out. And the words that I like to use are, I can't make it next Thursday, I'll see you in 2 weeks. That's all you need to do, it doesn't have to be fancy. These kids are going to look forward to working with you. You are a privilege, you are a treat. They are getting individual attention from you, focus, you're seeing them. We see this all the time. You're the big brother, big sister with all the stuff of really being a big brother, big sister that they're really going to want to sit with. So your predictability, reassuring them that you're going to stay around is really helpful. And I can just tell you, research has shown that a key to learning is for students to feel safe. And that's to feel that they're with somebody who, again, is predictable, is going to keep coming back, and who's going to stick with them to help them figure out what it is that they're struggling with, what it is they don't know. Showing up is also doing your best to be fully present with that student when you're interacting with them. I know you got stuff going on in your lives. I got stuff going on in my life. Maybe you had a bad day, but it's about doing your best to really be there with the student and set those things aside. And trust me, that's very hard for adults my age to do, and so you don't have to be superhuman, but just do your best. Okay? Another part of showing up is keeping yourself and students feeling safe. I mentioned creating a safe environment. So one aspect of being safe, which may be obvious to you, but meet in a public place. It's what we call the line of sight. If you're in your library, I know there will be some designated spaces. Just make sure it's where anybody can see the two of you. Frankly, it's for your safety as well. I've not heard of any issues of kids lying and saying that you were doing stuff that was inappropriate when it wasn't happening, but it just being visible is a smart thing to do, and it can also make your student feel comfortable as well. It's also important, in that vein, sometimes we get questions about appropriate touch. I don't know what you all experienced in elementary school, but little kids are really huggy these days. It's a big thing, and they will hug you, they will tap you around the knees. Figure out what you're comfortable with your boundaries. Sometimes if someone's coming at me, I just do the high five, and a little, oh, nice job, tap on the shoulder. Frankly, it may be something that you and your student can talk about. What kind of things make you feel good? How should I show you that you've done a good job? I always say, if a student approaches you with a hug, you don't have to refuse it because they've initiated it, but just the obvious thing of hugs can sometimes be misinterpreted. I'll tell you, in my family, my parents were not really huggy people. They are now. But if a stranger had started hugging me as a kid, I would have gone, that's kind of weird. And it would have made me feel uncomfortable. So think through some strategies that work for you, and just be mindful of that. I also want to talk about, in case it occurs to you that maybe you want to reward your student. You know, you've seen them for a couple of times and they're doing a really good job. As Amy mentioned, there is food here. I always say, don't bring food of your own. Lots of allergies out there, and that would not be a good thing. And frankly, don't feel you have to bring tangible items. I know sometimes people do bring stickers or erasers if you're so inclined, but frankly, that recognition, that acknowledgement, that talking to the student about some things they're interested in, spending time with them is a big deal. We have a volunteer who will give virtual rewards. They'll finish their reading session and they'll have a couple minutes and they'll say, you read really well today. I think we deserve a trip to Disneyland. So, you gonna take me along? What are we gonna pack? What rides are we gonna go on? What kind of food are we gonna eat? They spend maybe 5 minutes, and this kid, it's a big reward. So things like that that are a little, to our creative person in the back, a little more creative can also be really fun. What you've done in that moment, to break it down a bit, is again, you've seen that student as an individual, you've engaged with them. They may not feel that they're being seen. And I don't know if any of you have ever felt that way, but having an older person really see and acknowledge and listen to them and care about them enough to even play this game can be a really big deal. Or it can be a little deal, but sometimes those little deals add up to big ones. The other thing that's the third thing up here is respecting their privacy. As students, you create the safe place. Students may start telling you things about their home life, their worries, their concerns that they may not have shared with other people. They could be big things, they could be little things. Please don't go posting these on Facebook, the internet, tell your friends. We really need to respect the privacy of the students. In fact, in Marin City, which is a pretty tight-knit community, we had an adult volunteer a couple years ago chatting in the grocery line, not using the student's name, but there were enough identifiers you could kind of know who it was. The aunt was standing in front of them. That was not a good situation. So just be mindful of that. Okay? If you have any concerns about a student's welfare, things they're telling you, things you're observing, and in this case it can be overt issues or concerns about neglect, talk to your library coordinator. They are mandated reporters, and it may well be that the school, the family are already addressing the issue, but they'll also make sure they'll validate that something's happening. I don't know that this applies in your situation, but I'll just mention it. Often what my volunteers notice in the classroom are more benign but equally important things, like I had a volunteer, actually at Bahia Vista, in San Rafael, who was told there's a little girl in the back of the classroom who seems very reserved. So he kind of kept a watch on her and started working with her. He noticed she didn't seem to be able to see the board. I don't know if she needed glasses, but it could be things like that. And, you know, tell somebody. These are young students. It may be that it hadn't developed till this point or has gone unnoticed. Okay? Questions about any of this? Sometimes this is a big concern for people. Alrighty, cool. Okay, so I asked you earlier to name your strength, and I have a little video, assuming I can get this, that talks about something called a strengths perspective. What I'm about to share with you is accepted educational approaches, so it's not something I created or the library created. These are approaches that teachers are also using in the classroom.
It was once said that if we ask people to look for their deficits, they will usually find them, and their view of the situation will be colored by this. If we ask people to look for their successes, they will usually find it, and their view of the situation will be colored by this. In many ways, our traditional model of care embraces the belief that people need help because they actually have a problem. This emphasis on deficits, or what a person is lacking, leads to a cycle of focusing only on what needs need to be repaired, followed by some assumed solutions. It's a deficit approach that says, I need to fix you. When we do that, though, we actually deny people the opportunity to face the challenge and actually learn from it and discover things about themselves that they're going to need in order to resolve that situation in a way that actually looks like success for them. More recently, care providers and organizations have embraced this new strengths perspective and what it means to work with people and promote positive change. Rather than that more traditional model of fixing, it's more about actually focusing on people and understanding what strengths they bring to the picture, what capacities that we can draw upon that actually they will use in ways to transform their own lives in positive ways. It's important to understand that a strength-based perspective is not about denying challenges, but it actually sees challenges as an opportunity to grow. When problems become the starting point of change, then we tend to label people. There's a dependency that occurs. And it's always about drawing upon others in order to resolve their issues. But when we look at strengths, when we look at those things that people bring to the picture, they are then able to embrace it in ways that they understand. In many ways, this shift to a strength-based perspective changes the way we work with people. It's about working with people and facilitating rather than trying to fix their issues. It's about looking for signs of health rather than signs of risk. And it's about moving away from labels which limit people's options. It invites asking very different questions that are more curious, exploratory, and hopeful. The strengths approach, as a philosophy of practicing, draws one away from an emphasis on procedures, techniques, knowledge as the keys to change. It's not expert-driven. It reminds us that every person, family group, community are the keys to their own transformation and meaningful change. The real challenge, and always has been, whether we are willing to fully embrace a different way of approaching people and working with them. If we do, then the change starts with us in the helping profession, not with those we serve. Embracing a strength-based approach involves a different way of thinking about people, interpreting their patterns of coping with life challenges. With a strength-based mindset, one asks different questions and communicates in a way that invites a curious exploration based upon a clear set of values and attitudes. It's about exploring what can be as opposed to why not.
All right. So what do you guys think is strengths? Yep. Okay, great. All right. Other ways, just you've done your name card, you kind of know one another, or if that doesn't resonate with you, after you've met them even once, it was fun learning about whatever we read about last week. Dr. Seuss or owls. Again, it's telling them that I actually took a part of my brain and remembered who you were, and that meant enough to me to come back to you and say, I enjoy doing it. If they're stuck on something, you know, this is tricky stuff, can be a way. It could share what feels sincere to you, but it could be, you know, I really struggled with this word when I was your age. But let's work on it together, and let's figure out what it really means and how to, whatever it is you're trying to do, read it, what the vocabulary is, or things of that sort.
Julie, you have a question?
Please,
Is
yes.
there, is there a metric that we need to meet or something, like if we're just drawing for 15 minutes and we're reading for 15 minutes, is that okay? Are we getting to know the kid for the whole time? Do they need to, do we need to read a book each time, or are we assessing where they are and then going to the library or going to a book at the shelf and getting another book that's more their level? What?
Yeah, good questions. We want it to be fun for the kid. So we'll have a set of books in there that they can choose from that might be at their level. But we really want to encourage all of you to use the library. Go with the student to the kids section, let them explore, let them pick out things they're interested in. If it's a little higher than their level, you'll read to them. And you're demonstrating fluency and like the cadence of your speech, and there's a lot of phonics that gets embedded in that kind of activity. And then maybe you will find something that's a little more at their level and have them practice reading aloud. And so in general, yes, you're trying to read. But if they want to read a magazine or the cover of a book or the back of a book or a graphic novel or something that's exactly at their level, all of those things are okay. And then if there's one session where you're really just trying to get to know them, they seem distracted, anything like that, and they just want to play a little bit, we're going to have literacy and educational games around, but also just playing. Like we have a puppet theater at the library. You have like giant Jenga sometimes too.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm a huge kid, so there's a whole bunch of stuff. But for those of you who are, depending on your schedule from Marin City, since we have embedded staff at the school library, you might be at the school library. And there are also board games and all kinds of literacy games there too.
Yeah, so you could, yeah, there's just all kinds of different games that you could make up. We will, as the program gets up and running, put out like icebreaker activities, or I got a bunch of those like tracing your letters kind of sheets that we can photocopy, and we'll have stuff around so you can mix it up. Reading's the main activity, but again, you know, get to know them, do something fun. If you don't read for the full 30 minutes, it's not the end of the world. There is research though that shows that kids do need to read a certain number of minutes a day to really kind of keep going, but remember they're getting some of that attention. So you're not responsible for making sure they get all their reading time in for the whole day.
And what I'll add is, remember, reading's not in isolation. To be literate, you guys may not remember this, you started speaking first. And then you learn to read, and then you learn to write. So even if you're doing Jenga, engage them in a conversation, and not the monosyllable yes, no answer. Do the who, what, when, where, why. You know, what are you building with that Django? Why are you making that shape? Anything that even gets a student talking, and especially if English is not their first language, will end up enhancing their reading. So I would add that as well, because, and I run into this all the time with my adult volunteers of, we read 2 pages, okay, but we talked for 20 minutes. Was it a deep conversation? Did you let their imagination go and they made up a story for you that was all oral? That's fabulous. That will ultimately contribute to their ability to read.
Thank you for saying that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So I just wanted to kind of, it's a little bit of backtracking, and I'm sorry, but just like with regard to rewards, and I don't want to speak for Amy, but speaking for myself, for Marin City, any excuse to go to Staples or Dollar Tree, I will take. So I don't want you guys spending your own money. If you want, like, and I already actually have a lot of stickers and a lot of like really fun erasers and stuff. So make sure that we connect about that, because there's lots of fun stuff, and kids love bookmarks. So yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff we can do. Huh? Yeah, small bookmarks.
No,
Yes.
Diana actually has more fun toys than me because she goes to Staples more than I do. And then I'm always like, I want those. But yeah, so ditto on that. And then Judy, I wanted to thank you for bringing that up too, because that storytelling piece and that talking piece is really so important. It's why we have the puppet theater. But one of the other things you guys can do if you're really stuck, or if the kid's struggling to find a book, or is like, I don't know what I like, or whatever, you can get any book and look at the pictures and ask them to do some predictive reading, which is where they tell you what they think is happening in the story from looking at the pictures in a picture book. We have hundreds of picture books, so you can find a really interesting looking one and like talk about the colors, talk about the shapes, guess without even reading what's happening in the story. And that's all connects to their ability to learn to read.
Great. So actually, I'm going to skip this video. Part of this too is if you want to encourage them, engage them, using praise, which I've touched on some, but let's spend a little bit of time talking about this. And I was going to show a video, but let's just skip it because I think a conversation might be better. How does it feel to you if I go, that was a really good job, versus you put so much thought and effort into working through how to say that word and what it really means? Is there one or the other that feels like it's going to resonate better, like it's going to be more meaningful to you? I hope. I hope you can see the difference. Work to be specific in your praise. Be sincere. You don't have to say, and if we saw the video, it's a young boy going, when you tell me I'm Superman, I don't really believe you because I know it's kind of impossible. But if you are specific and don't, be specific and be honest. You did better this time? Great. I think we need to work on this a little bit more. That's still praise. And I keep circling back to you really listening. That specific praise will, even if it is with the little correction I gave, is going to encourage them to have more of a growth mindset and work with you to improve. Okay, I didn't get it this time. We're going to work together and we're going to do better next time. There are, I think it's on the back page, some, don't feel you have to quote these, but just as an example, again, some suggested wording, being specific, being sincere, being empathetic, which I shared earlier. Oh gosh, yeah, I had a real trouble making my S's when I was in second grade too. I always did them backwards. But I figured it out. We're going to figure it out as well.
I had a list, but it's still, you can still hear it a little bit, especially if I've had a couple of beers.
Okay, we'll watch out for that.
Make sure you tell the kids.
Yeah. Appreciating. I mean, maybe they are coming in and it's been sort of a dog of the day in terms of trying to work with them, but, you know, I really appreciated that you tried. There are also, as listed here, the nonverbal praise, making eye contact, nodding, smiling. I mean, think about the things that you respond to well as well. When you come away with that warm feeling that somebody has really appreciated spending time with you. Okay, does that all make sense? Are there other things, if you're going to praise a student, that occurred to you? I mean, you are students, and it's been a while for me, so you may have had more recent experience than I had with praise and motivating things that meant more to you than others. Yes?
I remember when I was younger, and still to this day, like, I take enthusiasm really well. Like when, so I work at the Exploratorium, it's a science museum in SF, and when I'm explaining things to kids, when you have a very enthusiastic voice that isn't like overly enthusiastic, where it's kind of annoying or fake, it makes students like really excited. I remember when I was learning to read, my mom would like, her tone of voice mattered more than what she was saying sometimes, if that even makes sense. So like just remembering that, like it's super simple, but it makes a lot of difference.
I'm glad, if I meant to cover it later, we actually have a literacy specialist at one of our schools who kind of took us volunteers and said, okay, here's my big secret. I pretend that I am so excited about whatever book we're going to read today. I love owls. I want to know everything about them. Or, oh my gosh, it's been 2 weeks since I've had a chance to read a Dr. Seuss book. And just something that it can sometimes get kids over the hump for, oh my gosh, she's excited. Let's take a look. What the heck is inside here? And what could be going on? So a very, very good point. Okay. The last video. So what do I say when they're discouraged? This is one suggestion. We call it the power of yet.
I am not good at writing. I don't like reading. I don't like learning about history and science. I am not good at math. I'm not a great public speaker. I am not an artist. I don't do well working in groups. I can't run a mile. I am not patient. Are we done with this yet? I am not good at school. Yet. You're not good at writing or reading or running or whatever yet. That doesn't mean you can't be good at those things at some point. You just aren't yet. But if you allow yourself to be stuck in this mindset that you are inherently not good at something, if you believe that whatever labels school and society has slapped on you are true, and therefore stay in this stagnant place of mediocrity and limited ability, you're right. You won't ever be good at those things. But here's a little life hack, a piece of wisdom. You can get better at whatever you want to get better at. You're not good at writing? Keep working on it. Write poems, keep a journal, keep trying to make those essays in English class better with every one that you write. You have a brain, you have fingers, you can write, you just have to do it more. Not a good artist? When was the last time that you tried? I mean really attempted to create something. The more you pick up a paintbrush or pencil or fold a paper in a weird way, the better you get at creating and realizing that you are an artist. I've never heard of someone who took up running and didn't get faster the more they did it. I believe for many years that I was bad at math. I got D's on quizzes and cheated on my homework. My excuse was that I wasn't good at math, that I was very right-brained. But then a couple years ago I got into woodworking, and I needed to know how to calculate angles and use precise measurements in this work. I didn't just figure this stuff out, I had to learn it all over again. I wasn't bad at math, I just wasn't good at it yet. I confess, I am not good at understanding quantum physics. But if I sat down and I studied and I read and I talked to people who are good at understanding quantum physics, I would get better at it. It's a matter of having a mindset that isn't fixed or stuck in place. Instead, having one that can grow. And this works for anything. So what sentence can you put yet on the end of? Stop saying that you're bad at stuff. Don't tell me you're not good at something. Just tell me you're not good at something.
Okay. All right, so questions, additional questions, which then leads to, so I don't know if anybody wrote down questions at the beginning. Did we get them answered? Yes? All righty. Good. Okay. So,
I have a question.
please.
So do you mind giving us maybe some suggestions on what to, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but maybe you could give us some more suggestions on what to do if a child is particularly squirrely and.
Whoa, yeah, good point. And you all probably have some ideas too. Energy level at this age does not necessarily mean inattention, it's just they are squirrely. And it's going to be kid-specific, but I had a teacher go, what if they're doing this? Oh my God, that would drive me nuts. You could take the pen away or pencil, or you could just say, could you do that on your knees so it doesn't bother me? So you don't necessarily have to, I don't know, do you have fidget?
I was going to ask you, actually I was going to ask you about that, if you think it would be a good idea for us to have like a collection, because currently I don't, but I can get some, if you thought it would be a good idea for us to have a selection of things that the kids can fidget with if they need to.
So I'm far from professional. I think I have two thoughts. One is, on the one hand, it could be good, because sometimes that kinesthetic of doing this can be helpful. You might want to watch your hygiene issues, because they're young kids.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah.
kind of a trade-off.
Yeah.
If you had a way where you could have one per kid, or a way to dunk them in bleach. Because come January, we don't want you guys all getting sick. So that would be, but it's very, very good. Totally up to you, but to your point about inanimate objects, so my husband actually volunteers at San Pedro in San Rafael, and I don't know where he found in our closet, but a bear, just a stuffed teddy. And I forget if the child gets to hold it while they're reading, but they definitely get to read to the bear. And so that can help with focus. Sometimes it can help, an inanimate object can help if for whatever reason you're feeling that they're struggling to engage with you. Totally up to you. I realize you're at college, so if you have stuffed teddy bears, they may not, probably aren't with you. But I know some teachers will sometimes have some, especially a stuffy in the classroom.
We have,
that,
again, humongous child, so.
Yes,
We have many also, and like all the puppets, and so you,
Yeah,
the kids
exactly.
can set up a
Oh
little,
my gosh, yes.
a puppet
Read to the
audience,
puppet.
and, yeah.
Yeah, those things can help, especially if the child could, depending, you all judge, but if they can be the one holding the puppet, then that gets the kinesthetic. Sometimes though, it can feel safer to a struggling student to talk to someone that's not a person. There's a volunteer actually at Hamilton, I'm not asking you to do this, but just as an example, she teaches writing workshops in addition to volunteering, and she has a dog. And struggling students that are struggling to write, she'll have them tell the story to her dog. It feels safer than telling the story to her. So yeah, if you can, great, and if not, I mean, frankly, you could probably even name your pencil. And the two of you could come up with a name that you agree on appropriately.
The sillier the better.
And then, Mr. Fernickel here, we're going to read to him today. Yeah, you can be creative in that. Very good point.
Thank you.
But to that, and I don't know how many of you have younger siblings or remember what you were like. 3rd grade means you're 8 years and younger. But to that, getting the wiggles out, kind of judging with your student how long they can sit. There's nothing wrong with reading standing up or getting up and doing some movement. I can tell you as an adult, you all have actually been very patient. We probably should have done that ourselves here. This isn't supposed to be, we're going to sit and we're going to read for an hour. Okay, Katie.
Thank you.
All right, so you can share out if you want, but if you prefer to keep it private, I'd like you to take, there's a box on your paper, and just, no judgment, but what for you is the one thing that you want to remember from all this stuff we've experienced? And if you do choose to share out, I'll take it, but I won't force anybody. Okay. Yes, sir.
Well, I took away a lot of the numbers that you said in the beginning, specifically the 32,000 as low income. And then at Nevada Unified School District at 33% are low, and then at 72% at Hamilton are low income. So those are astounding numbers.
Yeah, yeah. As one of the haves in this county, I'm embarrassed to say we are very much a have and have not county. There's not a lot of middle class, and we need to fix. I personally think, and my passion is, you're a 1 degree of helping the students get to college, and they can in turn give their, not just themselves, but their families a better life. Not just monetarily, but in a lot of different ways, and especially if they come back to this county, then we end up benefiting. There's actually new superintendent at Sausalito Marin City wants to specifically create a stream of alum from the elementary school and who live in Marin City coming back to be teachers at the school, which would be super awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if, yeah, that would be amazing. He's great, I love him. So I don't know if you guys have seen Sausalito Marin City School District in the news, but there's been a lot of, excuse me, there's a lot of disparity in Marin County. I think, you know, people mostly think it's wealthy white people. And a lot of that is true, but in certain areas that's not true. Marin City has the only family public housing units in the county. And so there's a lot of income disparity, a lot of opportunity gaps. I mean, all you have to do is Google